How you doing, everybody? I'm Ken Bikoff at Memorial Stadium with Matt Weaver and Jeff Rabjohns. The Hoosiers are doing their construction at Memorial Stadium as the Excellence Academy rises from the ground, and the Hoosiers have constructed their depth chart as they prepare to take on Ohio State August 31st at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. Matt, I wanted to start with you. Looking at that depth chart, just what really stands out?
Well, I think the first thing I noticed was Caleb Jones at the backup left tackle, and then Donovan Hale starting at receiver over Nick Westbrook, which isn't a big thing because they're going to play a lot of receivers. But Nick Westbrook, was almost a 1,000-yard receiver last year, had a very good season, was a somewhat like an honorable mention type all-conference player. So it tells you the depth and talent they have at that position because I think Westbrook's had a good camp. It's just Hale has been that good. So defensively, Andre Brown starting at corner and Brandon Wilson over Robert McRae were two of the things defensively that kind of stood out to me.
Jeff, I was wondering what kind of stood out with you because it's a depth chart, so it's just an idea of who might be on the field first, and yet you can learn some things from it.
Yeah, you certainly can. Like I think Matt mentioned some of the key things, and Caleb Jones was a guy that thanks to Matt pointing out key games for me to go see last year during high school football. I got to see him, and he is a mountain of a human being. I think he's listed at 6'8", 370. And they might want to weigh him after each meal. I mean, he's, Richard Lego said he's, maybe one of the biggest human beings I've ever seen, and he definitely is. But it's kind of cool to see him listed. And I think the other thing is, Simi Cobbs is still listed there, as number one receiver on the depth chart. And they said at this point, no decision has been made regarding, whether he's going to play or not. But certainly based upon everything that I heard about that incident, seemed like it was a pretty minor thing during the offseason. If I'm Tom Allen, I'm certainly playing him on week one.
Yeah, Simi Cobb showed up in the offseason on the police blotter, but it doesn't seem like it's a major thing. One major development with the roster has been the decision of Austin King, quarterback, to transfer, and then Amari Stringer is going to be out for the year with some injuries and might be looking at a medical hardship. Matt, just kind of, what kind of impact is that going to have?
Well, I think at quarterback, it's not really an impact on your depth chart unless you have injuries, and then you could be a little bit thin. Like if Lego, hopefully he doesn't go down, but if he would go down, then you're down to Ramsey and Nick Tronte. So you're gonna have two guys who've never played and then no experience behind them. Amari Stringer, not really a huge hit because he was recruited for that 3-4 defense. Was not a great fit in this defense. He's been injured, had trouble putting weight on. So really, neither guy immediately is a big hit, but defensively, they'd have to really have a lot of injuries to get down to where Amari Stringer would have been. Quarterback-wise, if you have a couple, then you would have got to where Austin King could have been, at least maybe the backup or in the mix. But Austin King was passed pretty quick. I think it's the right decision for him. I don't think playing time for him was ever going to happen in Indiana.
Jeff, we've gone through camps here in the past where we've seen just a pile of offensive linemen get hurt or a pile of defensive linemen get hurt. As it stands right now, they've gotten through pretty healthy, knock on wood. Just how important is that just to go into the season at the level of health that they are?
Well, I think it's really big just from especially the depth standpoint. You don't want to have the depth be diminished before you even start playing. So I think it's been really good for them that they've had a really, overall very healthy camp for the linemen. And the other thing is it gives a lot of those guys actual reps. If you get hurt, even if it's a tweak or something, you're not out there getting reps. Well, because everybody's been healthy, a guy like Caleb Jones, gets reps and gets time, earns his way onto the depth chart. So those are positive things. And the other thing, talking to Coy Cronk, he talked about how many different guys, he's gone against during camp and how he feels like, some of the younger guys, he's helped make them better. But he even talked about, as many times as I've gone against Greg Gooch, it's really helped me get better this camp. So that means camp isn't just simply getting reps. It's actually improvement, and you want to see improvement during camp, and I think that's one of the things that, at least at this point, we've seen some improvement on both sides of the line.
Matt, we've also seen Richard Fant talk about how Tigray Scales is the unquestioned leader of this defense. Richard Lego says this is Tigray Scales. We've seen plenty of IU teams that lacked leadership on defense. How important is it that even a guy like Richard Fant, who is an NFL prospect, is saying Tigray's the guy that we're all following?
Well, I think it's huge because you want your best player to hopefully be your best leader. That's not always the case, but in this instance, it's undoubtedly the case because Tigray's the best player, maybe arguably on the entire team, but definitely on the defensive side. And he's really taken on those leadership skills and it's leadership role, I should say. And it's great to see. And covering him coming out of high school, he's still kind of a quiet guy, but I think he's coming out of that shell, at least on the field and around his teammates and in the locker room, and that's huge because he's worked extremely hard to get to the position where he's got a chance at the next level. He's an All-American linebacker, and when you work that hard and you produce like he does, when you talk, people are going to listen. I mean, Rashard Fant said that, I guess, after practice, he's picked up the megaphone or whatever, and they're going to listen because they know he's not full of it, because he's put himself in a position to be one of the top players in the country.
The Hoosiers closing out fall camp. They have Ohio State next week. Just your thoughts on, as the Hoosiers break camp and go into game week, how is this year feel different than others?
Well, it feels different. I was actually talking to Mike. It feels different where you when it comes to defense, there's a great deal of confidence. It's been a long time, maybe since the Bill Mallory years, where going into the season, you're like, okay, this is really the strong side of the ball. Not that the offense won't be, but there's just more questions because there's a new staff. It's not Kevin Wilson here anymore, and we knew what his offense could do. So I think the offense will be fine. A lot's going to come on the O-line. They got some new faces, some young guys, but they're skill players. I mean, we talked about the receivers, the tight ends. I think Richard Lego's had a great camp. The running backs, maybe no stud, but I think as a group, they can be good enough as long as the O-line does their job. But, I think going into it, there's a lot of confidence with this team. I mean, I think Tom Allen's done a good job. Now we'll see how it translates to the field. I mean, this is great that you look good on practice, but you got to do it when it counts. And so we're going to find out, and they're going to find out right away where they are as a program and as a team, because Ohio State is obviously really, really good.
Jeff, the Hoosiers have to take on Kevin Wilson, their former head coach, is the new offensive coordinator at Ohio State. But the coaches have just talked about how, yes, but this is also Urban Meyer's offense, as much as it's not going to be something that's completely different. Just how important is that for everybody to remember?
Well, I thought it was really interesting that both offensive coordinator Mike DeBoer and Tom Allen talked about. That's one of the things that they've been discussing through camp. Okay, they look at certain things and go, okay, is this going to be the Urban Meyer this, or is it going to be the Kevin Wilson that? And I think you're going to see a little bit of both guys, obviously. And I think the thing that's really interesting about the opening game is, do you see sort of levers getting flipped? Does Urban say, okay, listen, I really like this. We're gonna, this is how we're going to do the first quarter, and then if it goes well, you keep going with it. If it doesn't go well, maybe Kevin gets to go, hey, let's try this other. Do you see a lot of levers getting flipped? Because there are things that are much more Urban Meyer than Kevin Wilson. They get along philosophically, but with some of the gambling and long passing, there are some things that are much more Kevin Wilson. So I think it's going to be interesting to see how Ohio State handles that. But I think it's also really important for Indiana as a defense. Like Rashard Fant talked about this today, so did Tigray Scales. The big thing is be ready for the adjustments. You can't just go in there and go, okay, we know Kevin Wilson, we can handle what he does. You've really got to be able to make some adjustments. So I think that's important. And like Tigray said, I think it was Tigray, maybe it was Rashard, but they're also really good. It's like the coaches aren't making any plays, the coaches aren't running, the coaches aren't blocking. There's a lot of talent over there, but it's going to be a really interesting dynamic. Not only what Kevin Wilson brings, but the fact that guys he coached now all of a sudden are wearing the other uniform.
That's a good point. Real quick, when you look at their offense, Urban Meyer to me leans more towards a Rich Rodriguez spread running the ball offense, whereas Kevin Wilson, it's not quite Mike Leach, but it's more of a passing offense. And you have a quarterback in JT Barrett who's a much better runner than thrower. So it'll be interesting to see. My guess is it's going to be more Urban Meyer offense because he's the head coach, it's his offense, and that quarterback fits that better. But it is going to be an interesting how that kind of plays against you. Jeff makes a great point there because that's something I'm really interested to see from Ohio State, not just this game, but the entire season, how that plays out.
Well, August 31st here at Memorial Stadium, this place is going to be crazy. There is a buzz around the program, and not just because of the buzz of construction that's going on right now, but the Hoosiers will be taking the field on Thursday. And for Matt and for Jeff, I'm Ken Bikoff saying thanks for watching, everybody.